Hello, Generation 1 Transformer fans. This is Sparkster 1701, and as we're entering the cold month of December, we're going to start off by showing off a rather white-looking Transformer to go well with the snow that may or may not be falling in your area. This is the 1984 Generation 1 Autobot Mechanical Engineer Wheeljack. Wheeljack was released in 1984 as one of the first Transformers in the toy line. He would also be available in 1985. He would be discontinued at retail in 1986 and become an exclusive mail-away, and would be totally off the market by 1987, and we did not get a replacement for Wheeljack, but he did return to the line in 1990 as an Action Master. Wheeljack is one of the more popular figures, especially from being featured in the cartoon numerous times. In fact, Wheeljack himself here has the distinction of being the first Transformer that we see in the cartoon. He was also voiced by the beloved voice actor Chris Latta, who voiced Starscream and Reflector, but was also the voice of Cobra Commander in the G.I. Joe cartoon. Wheeljack was known throughout all the media that has been done for being something of a mad scientist, inventing various weapons and kooky contraptions that would often be the genesis of many an Autobot adventure. That is, unless the device in question that he made didn't blow up in his face. An interesting thing to point out about Wheeljack is that while this is the final product that we ended up getting, as you may recall from not too long ago that I showed off these battle convoy instructions that I got for Optimus Prime. But if you take a look down here, what you see for the robot form of Wheeljack, get that up close so you can see it, that varies considerably from what we got. As you can see, the most obvious is that the hood does not crawl up on the legs. It does also look like that his legs were intended to make him a bit taller. And most obviously, the head sculpt on this is nowhere near what we got. So it leaves one to wonder what exactly caused the changes on the Japanese toy. When it comes to articulation, Wheeljack's kind of funky on that. He does have some rotation in the shoulders, but they're mainly hampered by his launchers. Let's remove one of them, and I can show you. Got to be careful with this, folks. There we go. See, without his shoulder, he can rotate considerably further. Without the launcher, he can rotate it considerably further. His car doors get in the way. And he does have a joint here at his wrist, but it more or less just allows you to angle his hands a little bit for more proper punching, I would say. Other than that, that's it. He really doesn't have any articulation beyond that, but that was about standard for many of the large-size Transformers. Now we're going to transform Wheeljack, and to do that, we're going to remove the other launcher as well. This is somewhat difficult. You got to be careful with it so you don't break them. There we go. And despite what it's been known, put this back on. Those come off too. We'll explain that later. But we will also, well, if you're not going to hold on to it, I'll just take it off of you there too. So hold it. Now we'll remove his wings. There's something that can be done with those, but we'll show that later. Now that he's kind of pitching on us, stand up straight. We start by taking his head and rotating it all the way around. The next, we raise up his arms and fold his fists inward to form the back end of the car. Once we got them both in, we just slide them in gently, one at a time. Make sure it lines up with the head. You can adjust it as necessary. Then you can rotate the spoiler back into position. As you'll see in a little bit, the spoiler here can be removed, so if you're having trouble getting it to stay on, as you saw that I was, you might just be better off removing it instead of rotating it. It would probably save on the wear on the plastic too. Then next, you'll take the doors, you'll fold them up and then push them inward because they're on a groove down here at the bottom. In case you didn't figure it out, the canopy does open. That's a throwback to its original Japanese toy. It would come with a little guy that could fit inside and be the driver. I'll show you something on that in a moment. And next, for his legs, you will push them together. Fold down the hood as you bring them all up together. Bring the feet up so that it lies flush, and then push the legs inward. And that is, get those parts out of the view, that is his alternate mode, a race car. More specifically, Wheeljack here is a Lancia Stratos Turbo. He is modeled after a real car from the 1970s as part of the Group 5 Stratos racing team. There are, if you look up Lancia Stratos on Wikipedia, you will see some pictures of the real car that eventually became Wheeljack. So that's a real treat for you Transformer fans. Now, strangely enough, while Hasbro left the Lancia logos on here intact, it shouldn't come as too much of a surprise that the other name on here has been changed. This second L here on the grouping of two at the end should in reality be an I for Alitalia. That is an Italian airline that sponsored the original version of this car. And the original Diaclone version of this car would have the correct stickers for it. Here, let me show you. Because I happen to have here in my hands the Diaclone car robot instructions for this toy. And you can take a look at that. I'd read it to you folks, but I do not know how to read Japanese. And while it is somewhat difficult to tell, it does sort of look like that probably they did change the name on the Japanese version. I mean, this right here is probably the best picture we got, and it still looks like an L. So, in reality, probably Takara made that change as well to avoid having to pay fees to the Italian airline. But also, like I wanted to point out to you over here, as you can see, the part labeled B on this side of the instructions, that would have been the driver that came with the original Japanese toy. Something they took out of the Hasbro version. Now, while I've got this that shows you that there was a sponsorship from the Italian airline, this version also came with some other stickers that shows a different sponsor, Marlboro Cigarettes. And as you can see, just from looking at this on the hood of the car there, it also looks like they avoided paying Marlboro the rights as well, because it's spelling the last part of it with the O's side by side instead of the O-R-O. So Very interesting, folks. Supposedly, on the aftermarket, this version is highly sought after by a lot of the collectors. Unfortunately, I don't have it, but I do have the instructions, so I guess I get some bragging rights. Now, they also said, many fans have stated that the wings can still be stored on Wheeljack while he's in car mode. Let's slap those in here. Yeah, while they can be on there, they do tend to drag, as you can kind of hear there. They're dragging on the table here, so if all you're going to do is just store him and leave him in place, that might be a good way to hold on to him so you don't lose them. But if you're going to play with him or anything, I would recommend you keep them off. Because now that they're off of him, he rolls a little bit better. Not perfect, but he does roll pretty good. He's rolling fairly decent here on this table. I mean, this was one of them in the early part of the line, so he had rubber tires here, folks. And that as growing up as kids, that was a treat. Especially as later in the line, Hasbro would switch all their tires to plastic. So getting rubber tires on a toy car, that was king back in the 1980s. Moving right along now, we'll take a look at Wheeljack's accessories, and he did come with quite a few accessories for a Transformer of his size. And I will warn you folks that many of these pieces are very hard to obtain on the secondary market. So if you're in the market to get a complete Wheeljack, you might be better off buying him 100% complete. First thing up is the two pieces to the spoiler. Oops, there just went the other half. Darn butterfingers here. There we go. This is the spoiler. The spoiler does come in two pieces here. It connects onto Wheeljack via these holes that connect to posts on the back of the car or on the back side of his forearms. Here it is for the one on the opposite side. Now, there is a variation to this, and that will be important to some of you. This is the 1984 First Wave version. In 1985, when Hasbro started to put the heat-sensitive labels onto their Transformer toys, they put it for Wheeljack right here on this side, on this part of the spoiler. Here, let me show you here. Reach over and, of course, go for the handy-dandy guide, Transformer Identification Price Guide, Mark Bellomo's book. Good source to have if you're collecting Transformers, especially if I haven't done a video of it yet. But see right here on Wheeljack's page, they cut off the bottom set of stickers for it, and instead there's just the heat label on the one side. So keep that in mind if you're looking for the spoiler for Wheeljack. I didn't intend for mine to be like this. This is just how I found it, and I needed him. Next up, one of the hardest pieces to find are his wings. As you can see, they are made of clear plastic, so they are very easy to get lost. They are rather thin, so they do have a slight give to them. One should take note that one side is rougher due to having all the detail on it like this. Then you turn it around to the back side and it is smooth and flat. So try to make sure you inspect the wings that you get with yours so you don't wind up getting cheated. Again, same thing. This side's rougher with all the details, and then the opposite side is all smooth. The wings are some of the hardest pieces to find in the Transformer line, given their clear nature and such, so keep a sharp lookout for them. Wheeljack comes with two of these launchers. The instructions basically refer to them as shoulder cannons. As you saw when they were attached to him, they more or less are. He's got two of them. They're both exactly the same, so you don't need to worry about any sort of differences between the two. Set one of them aside here so we can get a good look at it. It does have a release button back here, the larger of the two spikes on the top, but as you can see with how easily it's moving, there is really no propulsion in it at all, so you don't have to worry about firing the missiles out accidentally, but if he's pitched forward, he may drop them. One thing to watch out for is this clip. This is made out of very hard plastic, and it does tend to stress wear if you force them on or off continuously on Wheeljack, so be careful trying to find these. That was a problem for many of the 1984 Transformers. These hard clips break very easily. Lastly, Wheeljack came with 4, as you can see there, put the one back, 4 of these missiles. There's nothing really fancy about them. They're just kind of the bullet-shaped missile. Kind of looks like some of the bullets that you'd see being shot at Bugs Bunny and the Roadrunner in the Looney Tunes cartoons. Lay it here and you can see against my hand it's not very big. About the size of an average finger. Again, like many of the missiles, they are very difficult to find on the aftermarket due to the fact that their small size makes them very easy to lose. Moving right along now, we will take a look at Wheeljack's instructions. This one came with a tech spec decoder. We'll just let it drop for the moment and unfold his instructions. And as you can see, the sticker sheet that he has there is the original Japanese one, due to the fact that, as you can obviously see, there is no Autobot insignia with it. And then now we slowly go through the instructions on how to transform him. He's pretty simple, folks, as was most of the other Autobot cars. Then, of course, lastly here at the end, see the stickers. He had quite a few to put on there, folks, and I imagine when they reprinted this instruction in '85, they updated it. This would obviously be the '84 version. Then right here we have an offer on the robot points to tell us to collect and save those for exclusive mail-aways, something they haven't done in years. And then how to read the tech specs, which was always a big hit back when we were collecting them in the day. Speaking of his tech specs, we got it right here. It features a nice picture of Wheeljack, which as you saw was on the front of his instructions. It would also be on the box. It's done in red to signify he's an Autobot, and it gives his name as Wheeljack. His function is mechanical engineer, and his motto is, never do what your enemy expects you to do. Wheeljack is the mad scientist of the Autobots, always inventing new weapons and gadgets, most adept at driving while in car mode, likes to show off his stunts, flying range of 800 miles using solid fuel rockets in arms, shoots magnetic inducer, shrapnel needle, and gyro inhibitor shells from his shoulder cannons. He is his own worst enemy, often injured while experimenting with new weapons. So he does come off as somewhat of an absent-minded inventor, putting things together all willy-nilly, not really making sure all of it works, and then has the resulting gadget he's building blow up in his face. But he doesn't seem to get deterred from it very easily. Checking out his tech specs now, it gives his strength as 7, his intelligence is 9, his speed is 7, his endurance is 5, his rank is 8, his courage is 9, his firepower is 7, and his skill is 10. So Wheeljack is definitely the best at what he does. Now we get down to one of my favorite segments here, where I get to ramble to you about what I think of the toy. Obviously, the toy does suffer from some drawbacks. The design of it does inhibit some of the rotation of his arms, but that's a small flaw that can be relatively easily overlooked on him. Wheeljack has always been a cool figure and one of my personal favorites. I hated to see him be killed off in the animated movie, but then again, he's one of the few that we didn't actually get to see his death. We only saw his dead body when RC dragged the dead body of Windcharger next to it. After receiving the instructions for the battle convoy and seeing the original concept for how Wheeljack would have turned out, it has intrigued my curiosity to wonder what caused the changes to eventually give us this little toy. But all the while, it makes me appreciate and like having this one even more so. So in all, in consideration, I'm definitely going to put Wheeljack up amongst the top tier. Because he definitely earns it with being something different than the average soldier. As a mechanical engineer, he has to help fill in the various needs that the Autobots would need. The cartoon series and a lot of the other media sort of portrays the Autobots in a vein to the Rebel Alliance from the Star Wars movies, as the Autobots are not the controlling government, so they don't have access to all of the resources that the Decepticons seem to be able to produce easily and efficiently. So they need somebody like Wheeljack to help design new things that will allow them something of an edge. Plus, when you also look at it, Wheeljack also helped invent the Dinobots that everybody so loves. So, in that vein, that's got to give him a spot in the top tier. And that concludes my review of the Generation 1 Autobot Mechanical Engineer Wheeljack. If you like the video, thumbs up it here on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Post a comment, share this video with your friends and fellow collectors. Help keep and support this channel on its quest to go through all the Generation 1 toys. This is Sparkster1701 saying I'll catch you all later.